This video will provide an overview of Ofcom's draft guidance for service providers publishing pornographic content. The Online Safety Act represents a significant step towards creating a safer online environment for all UK users. We are committed to transparently and effectively implementing this new framework to achieve this goal, and our draft guidance for service providers who publish pornographic content is an important step in this journey. We are implementing regulations that seek to address a broad range of online harms on a range of types of services. The guidance for service providers publishing pornographic content is one part of this. This is focused specifically on preventing children from accessing pornography on services in scope of Part 5 of the Online Safety Act. This video will provide an overview of the duties regarding provider pornographic content, provide a guide to our consultation on guidance for service providers publishing content on their online services, and give you information on how you can engage and feedback on the consultation. Ofcom is required to publish guidance to assist service providers who publish pornographic content on their online services to comply with the duties under Part 5 of the Online Safety Act. The Act requires providers to use age verification and/or age estimation to ensure that children are not normally able to encounter pornographic content on the service. We refer to age verification and age estimation collectively as age assurance throughout the guidance. The Act requires that the age assurance is of a kind and used in such a way that is highly effective to correctly determining whether a particular user is a child. Service providers must also comply with the duties to keep a written record of how they have complied with the privacy laws and data protection, and make a publicly available summary of that written record. At a high level, the key elements of the draft guidance that we are consulting on are: firstly, the scope of the guidance. Secondly, our approach to the age assurance duties. Third, our approach to the record-keeping duties. And finally, our approach to assessing compliance with the Part 5 duties. We will now provide a high-level overview of what each of these elements cover. We set out guidance on the 3 conditions that a service must meet to be considered in scope of Part 5 under the Act. Condition 1 relates to the type of content which is published or displayed on the service. The content must be provider pornographic content. Regulated provider pornographic content is defined in the Act as content which is published or displayed on the service by the provider of the service or someone acting on behalf of the service. It includes content in a range of forms, including still and moving images, audio and audiovisual content. This does not include pornographic content that is generated by users, or which appears in the search results of search services. Such content is instead covered by Part 3 of the Act, and we will set out our approach to these Part 3 duties in our broader Protection of Children consultation in spring 2024. This will include the requirement for user-to-user services that allow pornographic content on their service to use highly effective age assurance to prevent children from encountering it. Condition 2 relates to the type of service. The service must be in scope of Part 5 or not explicitly exempt. For example, on-demand programme services are explicitly exempt from Part 5. Finally, Condition 3 relates to the intended or actual user base of the service. So the service must have links to the UK, and our guidance sets out what we mean by this in detail. As mentioned, service providers must implement age assurance in such a way that is highly effective at correctly determining whether a particular user is a child. We set out examples of age assurance methods that could be highly effective and those that are not capable of being highly effective. In order to meet the duty, the chosen method or methods must be implemented in a way that is highly effective. We propose that service providers should ensure the overall age assurance process fulfills the criteria of technical accuracy, robustness, reliability, and fairness. We set out practical steps in the guidance for how the provider can fulfill each of these. Once the provider has chosen a highly effective age assurance process, it should then ensure that the process doesn't exclude adult users from accessing legal content. We provide practical steps for how the service provider can consider accessibility and interoperability to ensure that the process is easy to use and works effectively for all users, regardless of their characteristics. In our guidance, we also provide an illustrative case study to show how the criteria and principles might fit together in an age assurance process. Whenever a child is identified, the the provider must ensure that they are not able to encounter regulated provider pornographic content on the service. This means that the service provider must implement effective access controls to prevent users who have been identified by the age assurance process as children from encountering such content on the service. For example, by denying them access to any further sections of the service. We also expect service providers to take steps to mitigate against any easily accessible circumvention techniques. This would include not hosting or permitting content that directs or encourages child users to circumvent the age assurance process or access controls, for example, by promoting the use of VPNs. Our approach to age assurance centres on the position that no age assurance method is inherently highly effective. It depends on how it is implemented by the provider. We therefore provide examples of age assurance methods that could be highly effective, depending on how they are implemented. These include open banking, facial age estimation, and photo ID matching. The list is non-exhaustive, as we acknowledge that the age assurance industry is developing and new methods are likely to emerge over time. Self-declaration is not considered to be a type of age assurance under the Act. We set out examples of methods that are also not capable of being highly effective when used on their own. For example, debit cards or other payment methods that do not require the user to be over 18. We provide practical guidance on keeping a written record that is easy to understand, durable, easy to locate, and up to date. This includes guidance on which elements a service provider should include in the written record. As mentioned, the written record must show how the service provider has had regard to the importance of protecting UK users from a breach of privacy laws. We know from our consumer research that users are concerned about their privacy when using age assurance. In light of our work with the ICO, the UK's data protection regulator, our guidance highlights the importance of compliance with the UK's data protection regime when implementing age assurance. These requirements include making sure any data is used lawfully, fairly, and transparently. We suggest practical ways that service providers can demonstrate their regard for user privacy in their written record, including consulting ICO guidance, conducting a data protection impact assessment, and providing privacy information to users. We will continue to work closely with the ICO regarding privacy, where we have concerns that a provider, based on its written record, has not complied with its obligations under data protection laws. We may refer the matter to the ICO. Our general approach to enforcement under online safety is set out in our draft online safety enforcement guidance, which we are currently consulting on. This includes our regulatory principles of transparency, accountability, proportionality, and ensuring that regulatory action is targeted only at cases which require it. It also outlines the different enforcement tools that we may use and explains how we prioritise cases that come to our attention. Our prioritisation framework in particular includes the harm or risk of harm to children. In terms of Part 5, throughout our draft guidance, we give examples of circumstances where we are likely to consider a provider has not complied with its duties and encourage services to consider these carefully. We acknowledge that it may take time for service providers to bring themselves fully into compliance once the duties come into effect. We will take these challenges into account when considering if it is appropriate to take enforcement action against non-compliance with the Part 5 duties. Our main focus in the early regulatory period will be on working with service providers, in particular through supervision, to help them understand their obligations and any steps that are needed for them to come into compliance. This will be balanced against the need to take swift action against serious breaches and the importance of protecting children from harm. You can find the consultation and draft guidance on our website by following the link in the description of this video. Please read it, engage with our proposals, and provide feedback. We have developed bespoke tools for services, particularly smaller ones, including quick guides to online safety and key duties, as well as a register for updates and business inquiries. You can find a link to this guide for services in the description of this video. If you have any questions, please send them to part5guidance@ofcom.org.uk.